This video is brought to you by Nebula. Since coming to government in 2021, Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre has had a tumultuous time. In just 2.5 years, Norway has seen almost as many scandal-related resignations as it did in the previous 16. And on Friday, the Norwegian health minister became the latest to resign amid accusations of plagiarism, less than 3 months after the higher education minister also quit for the same reason. Støre's government is now falling in the polls, with his centre-left Labour Party close to a historic low, while the centre-right Conservative Party leads by about 8%, and the right-wing populist Progress Party is catching up. So in this video, we'll take a look at the recent chaos in Norway, why the current government is so unpopular, and why public opinion is shifting to the right.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos.
There are two main things you need to know about Norwegian politics. Firstly, that Norway uses a system of proportional representation, which means governments are usually coalitions, and secondly, that Norwegian politics has traditionally been dominated by the Labour Party. Labour has been the biggest party in Parliament since 1927, and it actually held an absolute majority from 1945 to 1961. After this, Norway was governed by alternating minority Labour governments and Conservative-led centre-right coalitions for the rest of the 20th century. In 2001, Labour suffered its worst post-war election results, which led to a right-wing coalition supported by the populist Progress Party. Labour then returned to power from 2005 to 2013, when, at the same time, the Progress Party had become the second biggest party in Parliament. The Progress Party then went on to join a coalition with the Conservatives in 2013, before the current Prime Minister Støre then came in to lead a minority Labour government in 2021. However, over his 2.5 years in power, Støre has dealt with a whole host of cabinet scandals, plus economic problems and controversy over Norway's massive oil and gas industry. Current polling suggests that if an election were held today, a right-wing bloc made up of the Conservatives, Progress Party, Centrist Liberal Party and Christian Democrat Party would win a 52% share of the vote, while a left-wing coalition of Labour, the Centre Party and the Socialist Left Party would win just 35.9%. Compared to other world leaders too, Støre is pretty unpopular, with a net approval rating of -40 putting him on par with Rishi Sunak and Cyril Ramaphosa. Støre's declining popularity came to a head in September, when Labour lost its 99-year streak in the local elections to the Progress Party and the Conservatives, with some Labour politicians calling the party's results catastrophic and admitting it was in crisis. So now that we've had a look at the polling, let's move on to the second part of our video, which is why Norwegian politics is moving to the right. We've got a few suggestions as to why this might be the case: weak leadership, the issue of energy and oil, and a broader right-wing shift across the Nordics and Europe more generally. So first up, weak leadership. Over the last year or so, Støre's government ministers have been caught up in a whole series of scandals and conflicts of interest, from plagiarism to insider trading, and his leadership has been pretty erratic throughout, leading to a loss in public confidence. Back in October, Støre replaced 7 cabinet ministers, including his foreign minister, and decided to rename the Oil and Energy Ministry just the Energy Ministry to downplay controversy surrounding Norway's immense oil reserves, which is an issue we'll come back to in a moment. Anyway, this matters to voters because Norwegians have some of the highest levels of government trust in the OECD, and generally hold politicians to high standards. Støre himself is widely perceived as intelligent but not particularly strong or communicable as a leader, and as the sort of politician who'd perhaps make a better foreign minister than prime minister. Støre's wobbles in government have also been said to undermine the Labour Party's motto of trygg styring, or safe steering, and some business leaders have even cited his, quote, extremely weak leadership and irrational and populistic policies as reasons for a drop in the value of the krone at the start of this month. But even if public opinion is shifting rightwards away from Labour, the Conservative Party hasn't been free of scandals either. Late last year, the Conservative leader and former Prime Minister Erna Solberg was also caught up in a stock trading scandal, although she hasn't been convicted of anything. Now, our second reason for Norway's rightwards shift is the issue of energy. Norway is one of the world's largest exporters of crude oil and natural gas, and has profited enormously from Europe's attempts to wean itself off Russian gas. Norway actually overtook Russia as Europe's biggest supplier of natural gas in 2022, earning an estimated $170 billion more from oil and gas revenues than it did before the war. Now, the right-wing Progress Party had benefited from this politically, having long championed Norway's oil industry and argued that more oil exploration will benefit the economy, guarantee Norway's energy security, and help make Europe, quote, less dependent on Russia's energy supply. At the same time, though, Norway's oil boom has caused fractures in the left-wing coalition, with Labour and the Centre Party generally being more pro-oil, while the Greens and Socialist Left Party have campaigned to stop all new oil and gas exploration. Labour has also been accused of a sort of green virtue signalling, i.e. promoting green-sounding but ineffective policies like electrification of oil rigs. Sture has also been facing months of protests from Norway's Sami people over a decision to continue operating an enormous wind farm in the Fosen-Halvøya area, despite Norway's Supreme Court ruling that it violated indigenous rights. And Labour have been criticised for rising electricity prices, which are in part caused by Norway selling a lot of its electricity to other European countries. Finally, Norway's right-wing shift also follows a broader trend across the Nordics and Europe more generally. Both Finland and Sweden have elected right-wing coalition governments in the last 2 years, with the nationalist Finns party and the Sweden Democrats each becoming the second biggest parties in their respective parliaments. Both parties have done particularly well with young voters too, and something true is similar in Norway, where the Progress Party performed conspicuously well with teenagers at last year's local elections. Why young people are voting for right-wing populists isn't fully understood, but it probably has something to do with social media and the growing ideological divide between Gen Z men and women. At the same time, though, there's also some evidence that Labour are being outflanked by more radical left-wing parties with young voters. So with Norway edging towards an election in 2025, how are things likely to pan out? Well, Sture has confirmed he intends to lead Labour into the next election, and in a New Year's video address in January, he insisted his government is at a turning point. Nevertheless, current polling suggests Sture has a long and winding route ahead of him, as another Labour term now looks pretty unlikely. That's not the end of this story either, so if you want to dive deeper into this and other stories, we have an exciting announcement. That's because it was revealed, in Variety no less, that we're building a new product with our partners at Nebula, called Nebula News. So let me explain this exciting announcement. In an increasingly polarized and confusing world, it's hard to find news that matters and that you can trust. So every day, the TLDR team curates a selection of videos that matter most in the world right now, handpicking a feed of content which should keep you up to date with everything you need. That means no more overwhelming feeds of news coverage, and instead just the stories that matter most, and videos produced by the brilliant creators on Nebula and curated by the TLDR team. It's truly the easiest way for you to stay on top of the news that matters to impress at your next meeting, dinner party, or whatever your life entails. And it's not just curated news content brought to you directly by us, but Nebula also features exclusive original content. So that's things like Real Life Law's brand new series War Room, which every month runs you through a whole load of ongoing conflicts, keeping you in the loop. You can also watch every TLDR video on Nebula ad-free, and in many instances before they land on YouTube. Now, if you're already subscribed to Nebula, you can find the brand new Nebula News section at nebula.tv/news, and be sure to bookmark or save that link so you can use it as your TLDR-ified news homepage. If you're not a member already though, click the link in the description to sign up now. And if you do, you'll get 40% off an annual plan by using our link. That's less than £2 a month. Plus, Nebula will know that you came from us, which really helps us out. So thank you for your support, especially when we're doing something so big and new. And we hope you love Nebula News.